So, okay, so we got the URL, right? We got the HTML. And this is the kind of equivalent of when we got that JSON, messy kind of bunch of data. The next step is parsing the data, okay? So, just like last time we used the JSON library to parse the JSON format, there is a library for Python which is really good for parsing HTML for getting data. The thing is, HTML is not a structured data format like JSON is. So the library is built to kind of it's basically built for web scraping to make this possible, but it's not like a generally supported piece of Python. So we're gonna use Canopy to download and install that library. So to download this library, we use Canopy, and you can go to, in your main interface, go to Package Manager, and this will show you all the libraries, they call them packages here, which are installed in your Python distribution, and everything that's available to be installed. To get some of the packages, including the one we're going to use now, you need to have this academic license. So you definitely want to get that. Okay, so in there somewhere is the library we're going to use, which is called BeautifulSoup. It's all one word. You type it in, you should find BeautifulSoup 4.3. Okay, so that's the one you want to get. BeautifulSoup, you can get the documentation online. Okay, so if you go to their website, you can get all the documentation. This has a lot of resources like example code, which you can mess around with. Because it's not as straightforward as JSON, there's not one way to do things. There's a lot of different search options and kind of queries that you can use in this library. Okay, so we're going to use BeautifulSoup just like we used the JSON library to basically take this mess of HTML and convert it into a structure that we like. So the first thing we need to do is import the library. And the way we do this import, it's a little bit different. The library, when it comes to Canopy, is called BS4. Right? So one thing you can do is import BS4. But there's actually a subset of functions in BS4 which are actually called BeautifulSoup, and we're going to use those mostly. So libraries come in basically chunks of functions. We can import the whole library, or we can import selectively from the library by using the from syntax. So we're saying from this library, BS4, import BeautifulSoup. All right, so we have BeautifulSoup imported. Now we're going to use it to turn that HTML into a structure. Okay, and for that we just apply the base BeautifulSoup function. So we say soup. This can be any variable, but I like to call it soup just to remember what it is. So this is our soup of bad data or messy data, and we're going to call up BeautifulSoup, and we're going to pass into this mega BeautifulSoup function all the HTML we have, which remember is in page here, right? We can comment out this print because I don't want it to print all that stuff out. And then this import, like always, I'm just going to toss up here so it's out of the way. Okay, as long as it gets imported somewhere before we use it, it's going to be fine. Okay, so what's happening now is we're getting the HTML, we're putting it into this page variable, and then we're passing that HTML into BeautifulSoup, and that gets us out some structure, okay? Now, if we run this, and we try to print the soup, it just gives us the same text. It doesn't look anything different to us. But now if we print the type, so type will tell us what kind of data that is. Now we know that it's a class, so it's an object of type BeautifulSoup. So now what it did was basically convert the HTML into a structure that it can now parse through for information. So it might not look any different to you, but it's a really important step because this is what we're going to use BeautifulSoup to search on. We can't pass it the original HTML. Okay, so now that we have that structure, we can use BeautifulSoup's functions to parse through that structure. And we do this in a way that's pretty similar to JSON, but in JSON it's a bit easier because we just use the bracket notations because it kind of brings that JSON file in as a dictionary, which we have the common kind of Python ways for looking through. In this case, we're going to replace those square brackets with BeautifulSoup functions. These should be pretty self-explanatory, and they're basically like search functions that we're going to use. Okay, and you can get the documentation here for a lot of these. Okay, so the first function we're going to use is find all, and find all will allow us to enter a type of structure from HTML, and it'll find all the pieces in that HTML that fit that structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one step at a time, okay? So I'm just going to go through these print statements, and I'm going to show you how we can use BeautifulSoup to parse into this HTML. So first thing I'm going to do is have soup, right? This is our structure here. And then I'm going to use the find all function. This is a function that belongs to BeautifulSoup. If you don't import this, it's not going to work, right? And now I'm going to tell it what structure to look for. That structure we can find in our website. So the first thing I'm going to do as a demo is I'm just going to find one piece of information on the site. I'm going to try and find this number. This number is important for me for whatever reason. In this case, it tells me the total number of listings that exist in Shenzhen for houses, right? So I want to go through this whole website, which I've already downloaded all the data for. So this number lives somewhere in this HTML. If I right click on it and go to inspect element, there it is, right? So in our soup, it's somewhere. And the way we can find it is by using this tag, okay? So typically in HTML, every piece of data is encased in a tag. It starts with two closed triangle brackets. In those first set of triangle brackets, it's gonna have the type of tag and the name, and then it will be closed by another pair of triangle brackets, which will have a backslash and the type of structure, the type of tag. This is like basically the core of HTML. And what BeautifulSoup does is allows us to look for this and then take whatever is inside. And it's really useful because most data online is like this. There's going to be a number and then some tag that tells it how to represent. In this case, it's telling us, okay, this is orange and bold. And now in find all, we pass exactly that information. So find all takes two pieces of information in quotes because it's a name. The first one is the type of tag, so we have span. You see how it's the same exact thing as here. And the second one is the class. And the class is here, and it's called org bold. And class is basically the name. Instead, bold. All right. Instead of printing, I'm just going to assign it to a variable. All right, so now it's taken the soup and it's searched it using this find all function to try to find all the tags that fit this description, okay? So when we run this, what it's going to do is it's going to give us back in this variable an array, a list of data of every piece of that HTML that fit this definition. Basically, it's going to give us each piece of data that is enclosed by that structure. So now if we print text, see what it gave us? This is HTML, right? You see the square brackets here? That's a list. It's a list or an array with one item, okay? And that item is literally that piece of HTML. This is the same as this, right? That's pretty cool. We found it. We're still not quite there, right? We want to dig deeper. First thing we need to do is Because it's an array, there happens to be only one of them, but there could be any number of them. We need to get the first item from that array. We can just add on, because this structure is here, we can just add on an index. Okay, so if just interactively, if I have txt, it's an array containing one element. I want the first element. It's just going to give us that HTML. See, it just drops the square brackets. But if there's two of them, you know, we need to differentiate which one, or we want to loop through all of them. So it just gives us back that piece of text. And then the next thing we want to do, we don't want all this HTML. It's still pretty messy. Like, we're not going to store this in our database, right? We don't want to know all this stuff. We just want this number. So there's a function in BeautifulSoup which will extract the text information from a tag. All you have to do is type in .string. Again, we're just adding on functionalities. I can do this all in separate lines. For instance, now I print 0.string. All right, so it gave me back that container, or the thing that's in the container, sorry. And the last thing I like to do is a function that's actually not part of BeautifulSoup, it's just part of Python. It's called strip, and strip will get rid of all the leading and trailing spaces. A lot of times the stuff that's online is really messy because it's like, for formatting reasons, to make things line up, they'll just add a bunch of spaces before a name or after, and strip will just get rid of all that. In this case, it's not going to make any difference, but I always throw that on just to make sure that it's, you know, just that data, nothing after or before. Okay, and that's it. And now after we did that, we can just say print number of listings. You know, I was just building this up. Now that I know what it is, you know, text isn't very descriptive, so I'm just going to call it items, right?